Hello, I'm Griff, and I'm in the most beautiful place in the entire world. Yes, you guessed it, Humboldt Redwoods State Park. And this year is so significant and cool because this is our birthday. This is our 100th birthday. This is the centennial anniversary of Humboldt Redwoods State Park. And that is so crazily relevant and interesting for so many reasons. But before I get into that, I just want to tell you that this is the first of a speaker series that we're going to do every month. And so to kick it off, of course, we have our state parks director, Armando Quintero. I'm gonna tell you more about him in just a minute. But first, let me tell you that this place is awesome for so many reasons. And because I'm on a time limit, I'll just tell you a few of them. One, this park has the largest old growth redwood forest in the world, okay? Also, this is where the land trust movement started. So people getting together and buying land so that people can enjoy it. And this is also where the state park system started. So there's a lot of things that happened here. And one of the coolest things is women's groups came together before they even had the right to vote and flex their new political muscle in order to save these iconic trees. That's why this place is so worth celebrating, okay? And the reason why we have all these trees here in this beautiful, beautiful place is because the people who lived here for thousands of years had a relationship which is really difficult for Western minds to grasp, but it left the biodiversity intact and happy because they had a relationship with it. And they've been the caretakers of this place from time immemorial all the way until today. They are still here. So very excited to talk about all these things this year. And for our first awesome interview is with our director, Armando Quintero. So why I talk about him, why don't you guys check out this beautiful, beautiful place called Humboldt Redwoods State Park. So Armando was named the director for California State Parks in August 20th. Why don't you go ahead and take them on a ride, because this place is so beautiful. August 18th, 2020. He's an experienced parks professional and expertise in park operations, outdoor education, equity and access, and diversity and inclusion in hiring and retention. Quintero is an environmental scientist by training. And since 2015, he has been the executive director of Sierra Nevada Research Institute at the University of California, Merced, where he was also director of development from 2008 to 2014. He has also served as a member of California Water Commission since 2014. Our director has not been home playing video games 24/7. He has used his one precious life to make the world a better place. He's held multiple positions at National Park Service from 1976 to 98, including Chief of Special Park Uses Group and District Ranger at the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, which is super beautiful. Personnel Staffing Specialist for National Park Service, Park Ranger Supervisory Park Ranger at Point Reyes National Seashore, and Park Ranger at Sequoia National Park. So he's been with the other redwoods. And at John Muir National Historic Site. Following his career at National Park Service, he was an independent environmental educator for a decade, from 98 to 2008. He has also served as a member of the Marnin Municipal Water District Board of Directors since 2009. Doing it big, awesome solutionary. Marnin Robbins is also a solutionary. He is the interpretive program manager for the North Coast Redwoods. And I'm part of his team, we've reached over 2 million people since COVID. And we've talked about a lot of untold stories, like the women's history and how they helped save this place, and about the people who have lived here for thousands and thousands of years, in particular, a tribe called the Yurok. So we are very, very happy to bring him on to interview our new director, Marnin Robbins. Take it away.
Thank you, Griff. And welcome, Director Quintero. We are so honored to have you join us here for this kickoff celebration of the centennial of Humboldt Redwoods State Park. Thanks
Good morning.
again.
It's great to be here.
So I'm going to, if it's okay with you, call you Armando during our broadcast here.
Yeah,
Armando, we've had some opportunities to talk about this park and about what makes, why Humboldt Redwoods is such an incredible place. It really is a park of global renown. When we were first talking about this idea, we had we had talked about the possibility of us being together and walking through these woods together and having a conversation about what makes this place so special. And I just want to start by acknowledging that this is a tough time for so many people due to COVID-19 and the travel restrictions that are in place. You are not able to be here with me in person, but you are in the Redwoods today. And maybe we could start by just telling everybody where you are right now.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. It's a real joy to be with you on this anniversary. And I'm joining you from Samuel P. Taylor State Park, which is in Marnin County, just down the road from Point Reyes Seashore and toward the southern range of where you can find California's coast redwoods in California.
And our audience may not know that there are many redwood parks in California. In fact, there are close to 50 of the 280 California state parks have redwoods in them. Redwoods are the official tree of California and are an icon for our state. And today we are celebrating the granddaddy of them all, the largest old growth redwood forest on the planet. What Griff also didn't mention is that it is the tallest forest in the world. And Armando, I'd like to start today by having you tell our audience a little bit about your relationship with redwoods, maybe some of your earliest memories of growing up around redwoods, and what is it about redwoods that moves you today?
Thanks for the question, Marnin. When I first started working with parks, it was at the John Muir home in Martinez. And just down the hill from the home that John Muir lived in with his family, there is a giant sequoia. And that giant sequoia was actually planted by John Muir. And so that was the first giant sequoia that I got to meet was one that was planted by Muir himself. And on that property, there's also a small grove of coast redwoods. And so the years that I worked there doing environmental education and such, redwoods were already a part of the story and they were connected to Muir. And, it was when Muir Woods was established by William Kent, the Congress wanted to name that group of redwoods after William Kent, but Kent insisted that it be named after Muir. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I visited a number of redwood parks before I was really aware of their significance. So redwoods have been sort of a part of my growing up. They've been a part of the landscape that I've wandered in and the creeks where I've played and stuff with my sibs and my family. And also in the years that I worked out at Point Reyes Seashore, which is just a few miles down from here, there's actually a third redwood there of the redwood family in the world. And just a few hundred yards down the Bear Creek or the Bear Valley Road or trail, on the left side of the trail as you head out toward the coast, there's a dawn redwood that somebody planted there last century. And a dawn redwood, for those of you who don't know, is related to both the coastal redwoods and the giant sequoias of the Sierra Nevada. And dawn redwoods are a deciduous redwood. So every winter, this tree drops all of its needles. So there's this gorgeous sort of actually very prehistoric looking redwood. It actually feels like something from the age of the dinosaurs. And it's really pretty cool where we're standing, Marnin. The ancestors of these trees were surrounded by dinosaurs and mammoths and camels. San Francisco Bay and this part of California was a completely different world. I was just talking with the ranger here at Samuel P. Taylor and a couple of our camp hosts. And, a little over 10,000 years ago, San Francisco Bay was actually a river valley. And that river extended out to the Farallon Islands before it dropped into the ocean. And when that was a river valley, literally there were camels, mastodon, and all these characters rocking around, literally in neighborhoods that were filled with these redwoods ancestors, which is amazing. And just a few generations, these trees live, as you know, to be over 2,000 years old. So, 5 generations ago. It was a different world.
5 generations ago, there was an untouched old growth redwood forest that extended from over the Oregon border all the way down to Big Sur, basically a continuous forest along that entire stretch, an area covering about the size of the state of Connecticut. And when you think about the fact that in the last 150 years, 96% of that forest has been cut down, it really puts into perspective the importance of places like Humboldt Redwoods State Park and Samuel P. Taylor State Park, that they are protecting these remnants of a lost world that almost disappeared entirely. Armando, what I wanted to ask you about is that event that took place 100 years ago when women's groups came together, people from across the continent rallied to raise funds to protect this park. It set off a shockwave to change our mindset about our whole paradigm about what places like this could be. They could be more than just lumber and board feet. They could be places for us to experience a different idea even of who we were. What I wanted to ask you is, what can we learn from that experience of those people, their efforts 100 years ago? And this is a two-part question. The second part of the question is, what can we take from that going forward? What does conservation mean looking into the next 100 years? And what will people, our great-grandchildren, what would you like them to know about our efforts at conservation today?
Couple things. One of them is, I think it's an opportunity to acknowledge what we are able to do as humans in our own lifetimes. Standing in the shadow of these ancient forests, it's sort of embarrassing to realize for me that the year I was born, Redwood State Park was only 35 years old. And so that gives you some context, you know, for our one of my grandmothers was born in 1888, right? Wow. And, you know, the state parks was created in 1921. And so she was 33 years old when Redwood State Park was created. And I think what the conservationists did in advancing the preservation of places like Big Basin and Redwood, and Big Basin, as you know, was actually really the first state park, and it came about because of the activism of a group then called the Sempervirens. They had a different name, the Sempervirens Club, and they lobbied the legislators. They convinced them to set that aside as our first state park. And then when, say, the Redwoods League appeared, they lobbied to actually create a state park system. And I think it's important for everybody to realize that in 1921, when Redwood State Park was established, there was also a bond that was passed, which was the first big investment to increase the number of parks in the state park system. And one of the things that's very cool about that bond, which many people don't realize, is it required a dollar for dollar match from nonprofits and from people like you and me. So not only is there an opportunity for us to think about our own activism, our own voices, our own engagement, but we really can make a difference for the future. And so in looking at our history, there's a couple things that I think about. One of them is, not only can we learn from what the folks who came before us have done, but also it's an important responsibility to take on this tradition and think about how we apply it going forward. You know, what do we need to do for the next century? And that's a huge question. And you've heard me say this, as have others in state parks, and that is that we really are at a moment in time where we need all the wisdom in the room. We need to be listening to the young people around us as they look at these places and reflect on them with fresh eyes. They may see opportunities and problems that we don't see, but we really need everybody's wisdom as we go forward and figure out the paths forward in terms of conservation.
That's a wonderful segue into my next question. because it really, like you're saying, it's going to require all hands on deck to make sure that places like Humboldt Redwoods State Park are protected, but all of the places, there are places in all of our backyards that need protection as well. And we need to expand our idea of even what a park is, to look at the world around us as a place that is worth protecting. Armando, this park, when it was created primarily for people who had the means, who had wealth, had power, had the ability to travel for a full day in their Model T up the Redwood Highway as it existed then in 1921 to come see these incredible redwoods. But as we look forward into the future, our state is incredibly diverse, with people from all over the world who have chosen to be here. Mm-hmm. And these places, all 280 parks in California, belong to all the citizens of California. And so my question to you is, what can California state parks do to make these places relevant and accessible to all Californians, regardless of their upbringing and their status in society?
Well, I'll answer that by saying I'm going to talk a little bit about what State Parks has been doing, what we're doing now, and what we're going to be doing in the future. As you mentioned, there's 280 state parks in the state. They're spread throughout the state, from the border of Mexico to the border of Oregon, from the crest of the Sierra out to the Pacific Ocean. So these parks are everywhere. So there's some geographic proximity to a lot of the communities in California already. So one of the things that's happened is, with the appearance of COVID, we have all seen a huge increase in people coming to these parks. And I think it's pretty incredible, because I've reflected that there's actually 4 benefits that people are seeking when they come to places like Sam Taylor, like the Redwood State Parks up north, the deserts in the south, the coastal beaches. And there's 4 things that I think they're going for. One of them is for physical health. Another is for social health. And the third is actually for mental health. And I think there's a 4th one that only recently has appeared clearly to me as I've talked to folks. And frankly, it's spiritual health. You know, and when I think about the tribes and folks who are the descendants of the first people in California, for many of those tribes, these parks in particular represent traditional lands where they can have, for many, many generations, for 200 generations, have been practicing their social practices, their religious practices. And so really, these lands have incredible value to all of us. And what's been happening is that parks, for some time, has been doing a lot of work to create public programming that takes the messages beyond parks. The interpretive teams of state parks have done just this incredible work with a program called the Ports Program, where you all put together these videos, you're transmitting to classrooms, you're posting them online, and there's been thousands of people who've been introduced to parks by seeing the videos that you and your colleagues have been producing. And when I was a kid, we didn't have this. Television was black and white. And my inspiration for playing around in the out of doors and becoming really interested in nature literally came from analog sources. It was National Geographic magazine. It was occasionally there were nature movies, but it wasn't even nature movies. It was more stuff like programs like Flipper, And so what the communities have access to now is phenomenal. And I think that the state parks professionals are doing an amazing job of making these places accessible via programs like Ports. And there's also an increasing and continuing to increase participation and ownership, if you will, of the tribal people in California. Like I said, the people who are the descendants, who are probably 200th generation, if not more, in terms of their cultural presence in these geographies in California. And so I think there's a lot of programming that's going on with parks. And then I'll mention one more thing that very few people are aware of, and that is that State Parks actually manages 3 significant grants programs. This year, those grants programs actually include over, and this is not an exaggeration of a number, $400 million to invest in communities outside of parks around California. And those investments are going to be for things like local nature centers, education programs at zoos, the development of trails, and even some places where lower income communities may not have access to things like a community swimming pool. And one of the things that I really want to see is that we increase our messaging that these local communities are benefiting by the work that you and your colleagues in state parks are doing. And I think we have a real opportunity to connect these local programs that are funded by these dollars and connect them to places like where you and I are standing right now. And the thing that I also love about that is that we really have an opportunity to reinforce to all Californians that these parks are theirs. And I think that just as we own our homes and such, I think that there's an opportunity for folks to realize that as owners of these parks, there's also a responsibility with it, and that's to take care of these parks. So I think we're at a moment in history where we really have an opportunity to look to the future, and I might talk about that a bit more in a minute, but I'll stop there for now. We have an opportunity to look to a future that develops traditions that are very different, but actually a trajectory of the traditions that we've inherited in parks.
Thank you, and I want to just touch on a couple of the things that you mentioned. Equitable access and how important it is to reach all Californians. And the California State Parks Ports Program, which stands for Parks Online Resources for Teachers and Students, this year, due to COVID-19 and kids, so many students who are stuck at home, is really filling an important niche to be able to connect young people with their natural and cultural heritage in the state. And this year, across the state, we will deliver ports programs to probably close to 100,000 students, which is phenomenal when you think about just the growth of that, of the medium, to be able to deliver these kinds of programs to kids and to get them hooked so that they come out themselves and see these places. One of the things that you talked about was the spiritual connection that people have, and the need for connecting to nature, the healing power of nature. Mm-hmm. And the question that I wanted to ask you is really around this moment in our history. This has been a tough year.
Yeah.
We as a country are approaching 500,000 deaths due to COVID-19. And we have seen unprecedented divisions play out in our society across the board. And I guess my question to you, Armando, is what role can parks play in helping to heal our country, to bring us together, and to help put us on a footing towards a better future?
Well, this year has been sobering if it's been anything. And along with humanity suffering from a pandemic, the wildlands of California suffered a catastrophic fire pandemic this year as well. And so I mentioned a couple things. One of them is my first day on the job was actually down at Big Basin. And I went and toured the headquarters of Big Basin with the governor and with a bunch of other members of the media and leaders from around California, as well as FEMA and other federal leaders. And it was, literally my heart was on the forest floor as we walked through the headquarters of Big Basin. And during that walk, just to give you a sense of, I mean, you talked about the numbers of people who passed because of COVID this year. And you're standing in a forest where the canopy of the forest is about 300 feet over your head. Is that right? When we were standing at the headquarters of Big Basin, I asked one of the firefighters from CAL FIRE, who was there when the forest was on fire, I asked them what their estimate was of the flame heights. In the heart of Big Basin, the flame heights were estimated to be 500 feet.
Wow.
And in our histories, in these redwood forests, that it still is unimaginable. And the governor, I'll use this as a context for something that I want to use to answer your question. As we were walking back from the tour, the governor stopped. He introduced me to this whole audience, and he said, "Hey, this is our new director of state parks." And then he said, "Armando, why don't you give us your vision for state parks?" And I kid you not, the forest floor was still smoldering. The mother of the forest, one of the largest trees in Big Basin, had a pocket of flame that was still flickering out of the top of that tree. And that was the scene that I was looking at when I had to give my vision to the audience. It was grounding, and along with talking about things like we talked about earlier in terms of sempervirens and the Save the Redwoods League and the power that they have for places like this, I reflected on several things. One of them is these catastrophic fires are telling us that the world has changed. Climate change is real. A lot of people don't realize that the word existential means that it exists. I've talked to folks, and when they hear that word, they think it means someplace else or far away. And it's like, no, it's here. And I think the fires of this year proved that to us. So we have to be paying attention to that as we go forward. We now have new science. We need to be applying the best science and the best of the experiences and wisdom that we've gathered in these wild places, and also understanding that these wild places are intrinsically connected to the places where we live. I mean, right behind you, Marnin, you're standing in a healthy forest, which also means you're standing in a place that has healthy soils. Healthy soils are actually the greatest carbon sink on the planet. So if we maintain not only these places, but our backyards and our communities with healthy soils, that can have a direct impact on climate change. And also, as we said earlier, because of COVID, the public has flooded to these places. So there's all these new users. And so as we go forward, how do we accommodate? How do we connect with all these new people for whom parks is a good idea or new idea? And we have to do a couple things there. Not only do we need to say, hey, here's how we try to operate to keep these places healthy, but I think we have to engage those individuals in understanding what they think about how they can contribute to how we take care of these places, and frankly, how we understand these places. In some ways, I think since the first land that was set aside was Yosemite in 1862 by President Lincoln. Since that time, we've carried forth these traditions, but in a way, those traditions have included a mindset from the Victorian era. And I think we need to open that up a bit and continue thinking about traditions as something that evolves, that's something that we own, and something that we can contribute to as we go forward, as we hand this off to future generations. So all of those things are things that we have to apply to not only how we manage and engage the world with the places where we're working, but around the world, the emergence of parks actually literally began with the establishment of these parks in California. So there's an opportunity for all of us as land managers, as people who enjoy these places. We have an opportunity to affect the traditions and the way folks worldwide look at these places. And I'll just say one last thing, and that is that the values that these public lands represent for all of us are much more than I'm aware of, I'm sure. It's healthy soils, healthy forests means healthy water. Healthy soils are better sponges. They retain water and they make it cleaner. Obviously, the air quality is improved by all of the greenery and all the work that's going on via the vegetation in these places. And also, these parks are basically crucibles of biodiversity. And I think we also have an opportunity to recognize that we as humans are a part of that biodiversity, but we also play a part with the biodiversity. And so engaging all of that is really an exciting and wonderful challenge for us, and I think for the public.
Thank you for all of that incredible wisdom and a call to action that we as human beings, we have the power is in our hands. We have the power to harm Mother Nature. We also have the power to heal and to leave our world a better place for future generations.
And it's reciprocal. And we benefit by that. Yeah, go ahead.
It will be, it is a generational effort, something that will continue to need to be done to protect parks and to work throughout all of our lives for many, many years to come to ensure that we still have the rich biodiversity that has been gifted to us as citizens of California.
Two quick things to mention, Marnin, and one of them is that this governor has put forth a goal for us, which is to protect and preserve 30% of California's landscape by 2030. State Parks is a major partner in that. We are looking at new acquisitions all over California. We've already got a priority list, and we're really hoping to advance that. And then the other thing is I absolutely have to do a call out to Sam Hodder and all of the members and supporters of the Save the Redwoods League. Without them, we would not be where we are. So a heartfelt thanks to Sam and to all of those who work with and for the Save the Redwoods League.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for joining us today and for helping us kick off this, this year of celebration for Humboldt Redwoods State Park, and for talking about the Save the Redwoods League, who in many ways helped to bring the entire California State Park into fruition by protecting ancient redwood groves across the state. We're, Armando, we're out of time today, so we're going to say goodbye to you now. Thank you. And
happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Save the Humboldt
birthday.
I'm going to turn this over to interpreter Kyle Atschliger, who will be talking about our next in our series of live interviews, just as part of the celebration of this park.
Wonderful. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all of you joining us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Special thank you to our director, Armando Quintero, and of course, Marnin Robbins and Griff Griffith for hosting us in his neck of the woods. Make sure you stay tuned to the California State Parks Facebook page. We're going to be celebrating all year long, basically, this 100th birthday for Humboldt Redwoods. Our next interview is going to be with Sam Hodder of Save the Redwoods League, who Director Quintero was just mentioning. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And for more information, you can head to humboldtredwoods.org/100, the number 100. Stay tuned. We'll see you in the next interview. Thank you all so much for joining. We'll see you next time.